Score counselor and mentor, Jim Rossetti, along with co-host and business coach, Mr. Ron Nielsen.
Hi, this is Jim Rossetti.
And Ron Nielsen,
host and co-host of the Biz Connection, a show that champions entrepreneurship. And behind every business, there's a story to tell. And on the Biz Connection, we're telling them. And why is it perfect for your station? Well, just ask Kelly Meyer of WHBL News Radio 1330.
Because many of our advertisers are, in fact, small businesses, the Biz Connection offers tips and resources that are useful to these businesses. We're also mindful that successful small businesses also create new jobs in our community, so any resource that helps them is in everyone's best interest. And just listening to interviews with entrepreneurs that have persevered can be so inspiring to listeners, whether they're in business or simply aspiring to be in business.
Or ask Dave Hendrickson, Operations Manager of WJUB 1420.
Even though our format revolves around music, the Biz Connection radio show has managed to build a new dimension to our Breeze listening audience on the weekend. The inspiring and motivational content of the show connects with our small business community in a very positive way. It helps educate, empower, and at the same time provide entertainment value to our listeners. The show cuts across all demographic lines and has relevant information not only to existing businesses, but those wanting to be in business. The interviews are very compelling and feature the human interest side of being in business.
you know, Jim, our mission on the Biz Connection is to educate, motivate, inspire, empower, and yes, we like to entertain too. We like to look at ourselves as a clearinghouse for all business resources. You can just ask our expert guest, Al Lautenschlager, co-author of Guerrilla Marketing in 30 Days.
The number one challenge that I see with entrepreneurs is implementation. I see it all the time, every day when I work with businesses of all types. I get involved with marketing, coaching, and consulting, and I see that implementation is tough. The Biz Connection acts as a direct clearinghouse for all things related to marketing, strategic planning, mentoring, and assistance in providing that implementation for a small business. In the 21st century, we all know that information is of vital importance to all listeners, and especially the business community. As a frequent contributor to the show, I get the opportunity to share much of the research that I've done from my books, my speeches, and my consulting that work towards the success of small business entrepreneurs.
And we feature compelling interviews like this one with defensive end Willie Davis of the 60s Green Bay Packers. After a Hall of Fame professional football career, Willie took over a defunct beverage distributorship in Los Angeles. And struggling to revive it, Willie shares how he brought it back to life using Lombardi leadership principles and saved jobs and kept people from termination.
He had a plan that probably would have built success almost in anything that needed structure, that needed motivation, that needed all those things that you tend to have to show or possess in business. He was able to project all of that. I know Jerry Kramer, teammate, we used to always talk about fear motivation, and it was really interesting because when it came to football, there was no question that there was some fear motivation. You go into business and you think about fear motivation, you think about how much attention you needed to pay to the whole process. And it meant a lot in business, just as it did a lot in football.
Yeah.
So you kind of go through the same emotion when you transitioned into business, that fear became a real motivator.
Oh, no question. I remember when I came out to watch California here and open up the first business, frankly, as a beverage distributor. Well, I was scared to death. You know, that area itself was not, in my opinion, the most lucrative area that you could imagine. It hadn't been, but thank God I was able to changed the area because one of the stories that I talked about many times in the process, I took that distributorship from worst to first, and that probably had as much fear motivation incorporated in it as anything, because I just was bound and determined that I would have some tough times, but I would not fail. There's no question. When I would look at that and think about the football and think about the business, I just made them almost similar in the sense that I was going to work at it, and I just would not fail.
That was a great interview, Jim. Willie was one of my childhood idols.
Yeah, it was like stepping on Holy Grail talking to him. It was great. And interviews like this one with Carol Roth, former host of WGN Radio's Noon Show. She's a frequent contributor to CNBC and Fox News Television, and she's the author of the New York Times best-selling book, The Entrepreneur Equation. I'd read this segment about Bill Gates, and because I think everybody has the idea that he just kind of dropped out of college one day and turned around and started Microsoft, and the rest is history.
Bill is always used as an example of somebody who took this major risk, and he actually removed risk at every step of his entrepreneurial venture. As he was creating what was the predecessor to Microsoft, he was out having business meetings. He was lining up potential interest in his product. And until he had that, he did not go on to the next phase. In fact, there's a great story in a magazine I read about how they actually faked one of the first prototypes to say that it could do all of these things that it couldn't do.
Right.
And they waited to see if there was interest and then hurried up and built it, which I think is actually a great learning opportunity for entrepreneurs to sell before you actually create things to see if there's a market demand. But he really tested that at every step of the way, and it wasn't until he created this amazing pact to have his software put onto all of these computers that he decided to leave. So it wasn't like he dropped out and then came up with his business idea and is tinkering away. He had the whole thing all set up and then just left to do the execution. So I think understanding, taking the risk out of the business opportunity, testing it out on the side, testing out the market opportunity, doing that's the right path, that's getting the experience, that's taking the right steps and not just pursuing risk for the sake of pursuing risk.
Well, if somebody were coming to you today, Carol, I want to start a business. Is there a little pearl of wisdom or something that you would...
Yeah, sure. I'll boil it down to a rule that I have, which is called the rule of three. And that's that everything takes 3 times as long as you would think it might, that it costs 3 times more than you anticipate, and it's 3 times as difficult as it should be. So if you have that rule in mind, that's going to really set you up for success, because it makes you think however much money you think you need to triple it, because you need money not just to start the business, but to sustain yourself and to sustain the operations for a few years while that business gets going. And I just told you it takes 3 times longer than you anticipate. So you really have to plan for that. And I think it also helps you just mentally with that persistence and with the ups and downs, knowing that it's going to take longer and it's going to be more difficult and that you just need to keep plugging along.
That was an absolutely amazing interview. On the Biz Connection, we also feature interviews like the one we had with second-generation CEO Lou Gentine of Sargento Foods. You remember that one, Jim?
Sure do. Yep.
And how his father, starting as a funeral director, wound up founding and operating one of the world's largest family-owned international cheese packaging companies.
What I think is most important, and we continually stress today, is that my dad had a very simple business philosophy of hiring good people and treating them like family. And I think it's so key, number one, to have good people working for you that can contribute and help to develop the dream and carry on the vision of the company. And he certainly, from the very beginning, hired great people. And that may be people that were working in a sales area. It might have been people working in a factory, in maintenance, as truck drivers or whatever else. he felt very sincere about that business philosophy, and we try to carry it forward today. And I think we're doing a pretty good job.
What are some of the things that you think you do that kind of enhances that culture, that makes it grow and continue?
Well, I think it's probably could be encapsulated in what we call the culture of our organization, which we describe as people, pride, and progress. Mm-hmm. And, it's just different characteristics, and I'm not going to name them all, but, we really believe in an atmosphere that's somewhat light in nature. We think there's certainly an opportunity for humor in business and make certain that we don't get too carried away with ourselves. Mutual respect is so very, very critical. A belief that profit isn't a four-letter word. It's an important thing, and it's very important for businesses to be successful and to earn profits, and so that you can invest those back into the business. And we make a point of making certain that our employees understand that. Obviously, sharing our success with those that contribute to that success is very critical. And when we think about that, we look at something that we refer to as our stakeholders. And certainly our stockholders are stakeholders in the company. Our employees are clearly stakeholders in the company. They're people that are making continual investments of their time and effort. Our suppliers are stakeholders in the company. Our customers, just having the confidence in the products that they're purchasing from us are stakeholders in our company. And then finally, and really equally important, is the community. And we've always had a great deal of support from our local communities in this area, Plymouth, of course, and Elkhart Lake, but Kiel and Hilbert, where our other facilities today are located in Wisconsin. These communities have always done their best to help us grow and to put us in a position where we can be successful. So those things all together, I think, have a lot to do with it.
And how Craig Culver and his family struggled and almost failed when they converted a tiny A&W root beer stand into Culver's, a national 500 franchise operation in 22 states. And they did it through trial and error until they finally got it right. And they talk about that on our show.
He failed a little bit before he succeeded.
Yeah, he sure did.
I grew up in the restaurant business with my family, and as Scott knows, we've had a number of different concepts. But the first one that my father and mother started in 1961, when I was 11 years old, was a little A&W drive-in in Sauk City, Wisconsin.
Ah, okay.
And that is right where the original Culver's started in 1984 as well. So I'm a product of the food service industry.
Now, Craig, I was kind of reading in a magazine that I got from Scott, actually, when I was there the other day. He talked about, the fact that you almost had a little bit of a failure on your hands right in the beginning.
Yeah, the first year Culver's, as a matter of fact, 1984. And my parents were my partner, and so was my wife.
Right.
And my dad and I we lost Dad a few years ago, but Dad was an entrepreneur. And I didn't think I was as a younger person, but I found out later that, yes, I'm an entrepreneur as well. But my dad and I thought we knew this business so well and all the other concepts that we had, and we were always very successful at them. Opening Culver's in 1984, and there was no way we could fail. I mean, like I said, we were so arrogant, so cocky about, that we thought we knew this business so well, but we just about failed that first year at Culver's. Nobody knew what a Butterburger was. Nobody knew what frozen custard was in the Madison area, and it just about took us down.
Well, see, that's
survived somehow or another.
That's a good thing, I think, for our listening audience to hear, because sometimes people get the impression it was right out of the gate. It was instant success, and you never had to look back.
And that just totally is not the case.
Yeah.
We didn't make a buck until our third year in business.
Okay.
Somehow or another, we were fortunate just to survive that first year.
Right.
And, I said I didn't want to work early in the morning till late at night, 7 days a week. Guess what? Guess what I was doing? Guess what we all were doing? I mean, we had to survive, and that's how we had to survive. We were there. We had to. If we were gonna get to that next year, man.
So, Craig, during that first year, during that tough time, I mean, after the first year, things weren't going well. You didn't make any money. What are some of the things? I mean, you did some soul searching, or did you stick to the plan, or what did you do?
One of the things I talk about with my managers and with my franchise partners as well, that, during that first year, or any time for that matter, I don't know what kind of leader I was. I don't think I was a very good leader, but regardless, I was the guy leading the charge. And everybody needs somebody around them. Everybody needs support. Everybody needs help along the way. I don't care if you're the greatest leader in the world. You still need people around you saying, I'm going to support you. I'm going to help you. We're going to get to this next year, Craig. Somehow or another, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it together.
Yeah.
I had those people around me, and namely, they were my parents and my wife that were there to support me along the way.
Well, positive, motivating forces.
Yeah, everybody needs that.
So it sounds like you had a strong dose of perseverance.
The Biz Connection, a 21st century how-to for entrepreneurs. The show features biz tips by business experts and interviews with real entrepreneurs that overcame hurdles and hardships, that persevered in the face of adversity and adopted a never-quit survival attitude. Today's business community hungers and thirsts for information, direction, leadership, and constant inspiration. Those seeking to go into a business of their own find the Biz Connection a must in their quest for knowledge and mentorship. Set the tone in your radio market and invite your sales team to encourage businesses in your community to listen and possibly tell their story on the Biz Connection.